Welcome to the fine print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teske, and we are right back at it again today with Nick Schuermann from Vermont NORML. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, pleasure to be on the show.
Cool. Would you mind hitting us with a 5-minute life story and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I haven't given one of these in a while. So I am originally from New York, down in New York City, and went to high school there, born and raised there, and I came to the University of Vermont in 2016, and I graduated in 2020 with a degree in political science and sociology. Having graduated in the middle of a pandemic, the outlook initially was extremely bleak and not very optimistic. Would be an understatement.
I graduated right after the housing market collapsed in 2008, so it was similar.
I talked to a lot of people at that time who were in a similar boat, and I felt like we had a lot in common in how crappy we felt after graduating.
Yeah.
So while I was at UVM, this is a little how I got into the cannabis market and advocacy here. I had an internship in, I believe it was 2019. So during the legislative session of 2019, and it was for a political consulting firm in Montpelier. And pretty much my primary job, 90% of the time while I was working there, was covering S54, which was the bill that set up and developed the recreational market that we are, so excited to come to fruition in October.
That's not a bad internship, huh? That sounds all right.
Man, it was so cool. On the first day I got there, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and my boss said, "I want you to go to Senate Judiciary. You're covering S54. It's the rec and tax bill." I was like, "All right, let's do this." So as a result, I got a really good feel for it. I understood, the thought process of the legislation. And the legislators, and I went into it. I got to see it firsthand, and part of that was taking extensive notes. So really was able to kind of even flesh out my own thoughts, my own opinions on what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. So anyway, that was in 2019. Graduated in 2020, and when I graduated, I had an internship at the Chittenden County Public Defender's Office. And when that came to a close, I thought, I'm surrounded by these great people. Let me take advantage and see what I can do next. So to speak on how bleak it was after graduation, I applied to a job at the Chittenden County Public Defender's Office, right? Entry-level position, starting pay $20 an hour. I was one of about 1,200 applicants.
Wow.
Yeah. Jeez. So after hearing that, I was like, crap, man, I gotta really think outside the box here.
You need a backup plan.
I needed a primary plan. This was I needed something to do. So I talked to one of the attorneys there. I said, look, I got some experience in the cannabis world. I'd like to dip my toes in that however I can. And she hooked me up with Tim Fair of Vermont Cannabis Solutions.
Tim, shout out.
Big shout out to them. Those guys are excellent. I wouldn't be, as you will soon learn, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them. So, I sat down with the two of them. I said, here's the experience I have. Would love to expand on a little bit more. And frankly, I'd love to work for you guys. And at the time, they were interested in that, but there wasn't quite the capacity for me there. And they encouraged me to start a NORML chapter. And NORML, which is an acronym, stands for the National Organization of the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is an advocacy group that was started in the 70s, and it is pretty much the largest entities are the state chapters that exist. You also have county chapters and city chapters.
And do they have these in every state?
No, so they don't exist in every single state. There's probably about 30 to 35 chapters across the country. And like New York, for example, has 3 or 4 even. There's New York City, Long Island, Rochester County, New York State, NORML. So I looked into it, looked at, what the process was for starting it, signed a few papers, and then it became time to assemble my team. And I basically was just reaching out to friends and said, hey, look, I'm starting this thing. Does anybody want to join me? And I immediately got a yes from my very good friend and now colleague, Ella Guinan. And she informed me to reach out to a friend of hers named Kylie Clancy, who has some experience in the nonprofit world. So I reached out to her. We clicked, hit it off, and instantly, boom, I had a team of 3, including myself. And we were operating out of the Vermont Cannabis Solutions office for a little bit. And then we met Sherelle just by accident, pretty much. And Tim and Andrew suggested that she sit down with us to talk about the possibility of joining our team. Within 5 minutes, it was done. It was a done deal. And basically, that was about a year and change ago. And here we are in August of 2022.
Yeah, what you said about March 2021, maybe is when you set this up.
Yep, that's right.
And I was just creeping through your social media a little bit. Did you sit in on these medical roundtables that the CCB held the other day? Because I saw you posted something, but I wasn't sure if you actually attended the meetings.
Yeah, so I was able to attend the Wednesday meeting. And, I must say, whenever I tune into these meetings, I always look at how many people are in the room. And I'm always really pleasantly surprised by the turnout for this meeting. I think at one point it was like 40 plus people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was also very impressed with, I'm always very happy with how open and transparent many of the medical advocates, but also just the medical patients in general. We have the heavy hitters like Fran, Jessalyn, Eli Harrington too.
Amelia.
Yeah. Amelia, absolutely. She's always very vocal. With that, I must say though, I was also very happy with how many new faces that we had showing up to these meetings. All in all, absolutely so happy. And I'll say this again, how open the CCB is and how much of an open government or transparent approach they're taking to policy formation.
Sure.
And half of the stuff they're getting is from folks like us. So
yeah, they've all come on my show, so I count that as pretty transparent. So
great example, exactly. So yeah, I can only hope that many of the concerns and the wants of the medical patients and the caregivers and advocates, they will see, and we will see reflected in some of the bills that are going to be introduced in January.
I hope you're right about that, Nick. Could I just back you up for a minute and ask you about your internship with the Public Defender's Office before we get into the cannabis stuff? Because that was super interesting to me.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was I must say, it's always the unpaid internships that are the best ones. It always works out like that, I must say. That being said, I applied for it. I don't even know when, but I remember when I got it, I was super excited. And when I got there on the first day, I must say I was totally impressed with how well organized and how incredible some of these people were. We obviously, it goes without saying that public defenders are the hardest working and most underappreciated, one of the most underappreciated professions in this country. And that being said, I quickly learned that I was working at one of the most well-funded public defenders offices in the country.
Chittenden County, you said, right?
Chittenden County, correct. And my job essentially was to be the first point of contact for the defendants from our office. So I got a discovery packet. My job was to reach out to the client and have an interview with them to hear their side of the story, compile all the evidence that I could, and then hand it off to the attorney. And it was really an incredible experience to see how the criminal justice system works somewhat from the inside. I was able to, view facets of the process from an angle that I would never have got the opportunity to see. And really, I learned a lot doing that, but I also really learned a lot from my lunch breaks and just sitting and talking with like the attorneys, some of which have been public servants for 40, 50 years. That is really, that is where you learn the most, and that is where you can really expand your knowledge on this stuff, because sitting behind a desk can only get you so far. It's talking to the people who've been doing this for a long time that you really can pick the brains and get a lot out of them.
That's what I'm doing.
Touche.
Now, Nick, I want to move into some of the cannabis stuff here. And one of the big issues that you raised was sort of this delivery license, and I'd like to give you a chance to just speak on sort of why you think that's important, and what you guys are doing to push that forward.
Yeah. So we decided some time ago that we felt, well, we didn't really decide. I mean, it came up naturally that there really was very little capacity for someone who doesn't have a boatload of money or 20 years of experience growing or manufacturing cannabis products to, it's one thing to get into the market, it's another thing to succeed and keep your head afloat in this market. And as we saw the rules coming out, and we listened on many of the discussions and saw the bills are introduced in previous sessions, we felt that this obviously had to change. I mean, Vermont, we would like to think has put forward a values-driven marketplace as opposed to a profit-driven marketplace, and that is a big, that's a major, stepping stone for us as to how to achieve our goals. Is that's kind of the mindset that we use going forward. And so as a result, we wanted to develop a market entry point for someone who lacks those two things: experience and large access to capital or investment. And the way we saw that was a low cost and low barrier to entry license, which it turned out was a delivery license. So we looked into it. Turns out Massachusetts is doing exactly what we're trying to do, which
So
is
other states already have this set up.
so what it is a delivery license that's available exclusively to social equity applicants. And that would be available for a set period of time, and then eventually it would open up to the general public. But Massachusetts has this, and it's working in Massachusetts. And the window that we are looking at is a window of 10 years of exclusivity to social equity applicants. And then within that time frame, it is tiered. So in the first few years, it would be available to social equity applicants who only have that one business license. And then after a set period of time, it opens up to social equity applicants who may possess multiple licenses. The idea there is someone who gets in with the delivery license initially can then expand their business to other sectors of the industry, or vice versa. It goes back to what I was saying about a values-driven marketplace as opposed to profit-driven. We really want to limit competition as much as possible in this very specific sector of the industry.
Sure. And I've heard that same sort of argument made about retail dispensaries, and I don't know if that's something Vermont's looking at, but I've seen in some other states where there's just so many dispensaries that no one can make any money, and and competition is supposed to be the foundation of capitalism, right? But at a certain point, you've sort of overdone it, and no one can make anything.
Yeah, it's the age-old question when you're doing cannabis licenses: is do you cap the licenses, or do you limit the supply within the market?
Right, the production capacity.
Production side of it, right?
Right, sure. That is a great question that I was wondering if we might see in Vermont, but it seems like they're going to let the growers grow, and we're going to figure it out later.
We definitely do not support capping licenses. We think anybody who wants a shot at the market should get it. But we also want to see we also want to see farmers, cultivators have buying power in the market. We don't want the buying power to be on the side of retailers, exclusively on the side of retailers and wholesalers. I mean, we see that in agriculture across so many different fields. We see that with, corn and wheat, where and especially in livestock, like with poultry and with pigs. Any of these, chicken farmers, they get signed into these. And this is an extreme example. They get signed into these insane contracts with Purdue, and then
Tyson.
Tyson, exactly. And then they lose all their buying power. They are given a price, and they have to accept it. That is a great model of what we're trying to avoid here in Vermont. And that is not to say we're on a path to that at all. But we don't see capping licenses as a way of avoiding that at all. So we want everyone who wants access to the market to get that. At the same time, fair asking price for product. So having a good ratio of producers to retailers, and retailers to X amount of adult consumers is a good way to go about it.
Sure, sure. And this was, I believe, a quote that you said is you want people to open fiscally responsible businesses so they don't come out of it worse than they started. Would you care to expand on that at all?
Sure. So, I mean, that kind of goes into the thought process of developing this delivery license is, we, the last thing that we want to see, while on the, on the one hand, we encourage everybody who wants to get in on the market and get a license and open their business and start bringing in some capital. This is a very risky market. It is a high risk, low reward market. I mean, you don't see that very often. Usually it's high risk, high reward, but
Right.
that I don't see that really being the case here very much. Now, there are some people who are going to succeed greatly, and there are going to be some people who can't keep their head afloat for more than a year or two. And that's just how markets work. And it's just like econ 101. But at the same time, we don't want people to close up shop and then now they're like $100,000 in debt and they're worse off than when they entered the market in the first place. And it's a balancing act. We're trying to find where does the message lie of really trying to get people to pursue their dreams and their business goals while at the same time making financially responsible decisions. And yeah, I mean, it's tricky because, like I said, for someone who doesn't have a lot, doesn't have $100,000 to open a retail shop or 30 years of growing experience, it is a very risky decision to get in on this market. And what we're trying to do is lower that risk as much as possible.
Great point, Nick. And I want to just sort of tie that in to the social equity thing, because it seems like that's your angle with this delivery license is, hey, this is giving people an opportunity to get into a market they might not otherwise be able to access. And we talked about this on the phone about my sort of social equity situation, because I'm one of those guys who can't afford. I am a social equity advocate. My dad was arrested by the feds when I was 7 and they seized all his assets. And not to say I'd like to get into the market, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't afford it. And I believe we talked about this and you said you don't see a whole lot of equity happening here.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I will say this. There is such a strong sense of community within our very small states of cannabis producers, cannabis growers, advocates, people like you, who, you are a great example of you're bringing people together and spreading the voice and the good word of many of these, hardworking men and women who have really put their life's work into building these companies. So there's
sometimes their retirements and their 401ks,
it's, and God forbid their kids' college fund.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. No,
do you think the social equity bill goes far enough?
Which bill are you referring to exactly?
I mean, how they're going to waive the licensing fee and the application fee. Do you think, like, here's something that someone proposed to me was maybe the state should use some of their tax-free properties to let people open their own cannabis businesses?
Look, I don't think any state has or will get to a point where, I, as a cannabis advocate, feel that they have achieved true social equity. I think that's it's not an impossible threshold to achieve, but we're talking about hundreds of years of imprisonment and unfair treatment of communities based on their income and based on the color of their skin. This is not something that we're going to solve with a few lines of legislation and a couple mandatory payments by some of the bigger players in this market. That being said, it's unrealistic to just like go at it like that and just be like, oh, we're never going to do it. So, you have to be somewhat optimistic and try and tackle this problem as best as you can. So with that being said, I don't think Vermont is doing enough right now, but that's not to come for, the state, particularly, because I don't think any state is doing nearly enough.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there really should be more. I mean, and this has been put in the legislation, but we are yet to really see the development of this, which is like technical assistance. I think they should be getting legal help for free, especially stuff like CPA help with accountants. I mean, that's huge. Those people don't come cheap, and they are so crucial in this industry.
True.
We would love to see more business training. But then it comes down to the issue is who pays for it? Does the money come from the public sector, the private sector, or both? And right now it looks like, excuse me, it's coming a little bit from both. But it's Vermont, where it's a tiny state. With the absence of cannabis revenue, the state government doesn't bring in a whole lot of money relative to other states. We don't have a whole lot of people either, but cannabis should change that. I mean, there's so much money that's going to be brought in from this that we would really love to see more of a long-term game plan about how the revenue raised by the state is going to be used to fund more of these programs, as opposed to just some of these one-time investments that we're seeing out of the gate.
Another great point, Nick. And I want to ask you about this social equity fund. This was another thing we were talking about, that the large MSOs were supposed to maybe donate 3% of their gross sales to this social equity fund that would go to loans and grants for other people who are trying to open businesses. Do you know if that's happening? Because are they even operating? Because they haven't really bought up the integrated licenses yet, have they?
Well, so I don't know exactly if they have bought up their licenses yet. As we all know, they lobbied pretty hard to get their early start in May 1st. And then, as we are now seeing, they didn't really follow up on that too much. And there have been some articles that come out that said that they were looking to start in the fall. So my gut says October 1st. Again, I don't know whether or not that's true or not, whether or not they're actually going to open. But as far as the Cannabis Business Development Fund, that is what the MSOs are going to be, the one-time payment in the beginning. I think it's like $50,000.
Yeah. And
it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is we need a reoccurring reimbursement into that fund to go down the line, because there's something like 3 integrated licenses now. 3 times 50 is under $50,000. That is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
It goes, it's a problem that dates back hundreds of years, and we're trying to fix it with 6 figures. And people on the desk. It's insurmountable, somewhat insurmountable problem to fix. But we need more resources behind this behind this problem. We need more people thinking about it. And I'll say this: the CCB, as understaffed and under-resourced as they are, has absolutely prioritized this issue. My concern is a little more with the legislature as a whole, who was the one who set up this bill in the first place. I am still of the belief that when they passed Act 164 that set up the CCB, they set them up to fail, sort of. They only gave them 3 people an office,
and the timeline was super short.
It was insane. It just, and considering the resources they were given, it was almost impossible. And it's amazing they've been able to pull off what that we're on track in the way that we are.
I agree.
I am so pleased with the work that they have done, and they really are a pleasure to work with. But
can I stop you for a second, because I feel like you said maybe the House Appropriations Committee was really not inclined to give out any money to the board to fund their operations.
Yeah, so that actually, I made that comment because I was looking back at an interview I did with Chairman James Pepper, who made that comment, and he's absolutely right.
Oh.
That is some will say that is the job of an Appropriations Committee.
Sure, it sounds like the job of the Appropriations Committee.
And the state budget is a pie. So you put money into one thing, you're taking it out of another. And that is what they have to grapple with and balance with. Now, at the same time, I don't think they fully appreciated the amount of revenue that this is going to bring in for the state. And with that being said, I think it would have been much, much wiser to pump a little more money and a little more resources into the governing body, the regulatory body of this industry, the CCB. I think it will pay off in the long run. Like I said, I'm very happy with the work that they've done so far, given the resources that they have at their disposal. But I think looking back, that could have been a big change that they made
Right, like we could have hired this staff, like when we knew the licenses were going to be rolled out on May 1st, we could have had that staff maybe lined up in February or March and had them trained sort of.
Right? I mean, come on, that's what I'm saying. And they legalized this in 2019, and in 2020 we were set to come to market, which is a pretty big time frame right there.
Yeah.
Now, New Jersey did it in 12 months. New Jersey legalized it, and pretty much 12 months later, boom, they came to market. Now, I am almost certain that they probably had a staff of about 20 people or something like that, looking at this. And, it's also fair to say that the CCB spent a lot more time listening than directing than some other state agencies and other states have. And that comes with time. I mean, this stuff doesn't come easy. If you want to do it right, it's got to take a long time. But if you want to do it right from the state's perspective, you give them adequate funding, you give them adequate staffing, adequate resources. So, it's a tug and pull operation. And in the end, we have what we have. We're working with it. And, we're very excited for October. So it is what it is.
So I want to switch gears a little because you did mention some of this. I believe something you said was you want to sort of get out ahead of some misinformation in terms of delivering cannabis. And I wanted to give you a chance to do that, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we saw this very much so with the THC caps. When those were being debated in the legislature and like House GovOps, so much of the testimony that was coming out was just based in fallacy. It was misinformation. It was wrong. And I really got to see firsthand how, many opponents to some of the measures in cannabis, they just come out and they say, and they try and back it up with scientific facts. And, whether or not I don't know how accurate these studies are that they're saying, but I can tell you that, a lot of the facts that they are stating are not necessarily based on facts, which might.
Could you cite one specific? Is there one in particular you could maybe throw out at us?
I mean, so many of them say that we need to cap, like concentrates in flower at like 12 to 15%.
Oh, so you got to listen to some of that in committee.
Oh yeah. I was there and I got to witness it firsthand. Because, they say that it may lead to a rise in like psychosis among teens. And, with that, I say we need to really look at our mental health institutions that we have for our children. I mean, there are so many more factors that go into this than just smoking pot. Now, do I think kids should be smoking 80, 90% like concentrated flower at 16? Absolutely. I mean, no one should be, legally speaking, no one should be smoking pot at 16. Right. That's why we've set the age at 21. And in some states, they've even, pushed the level back to 25.
Yeah, I see they're trying to push for that as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the reason behind it, as the brain is developing still at that age. And we want to limit that to as many people, we want to limit the people who can buy those highly concentrated products.
Sure.
But anyway, going back to the delivery issue, we really, using the THC caps as an example, we wanted to get ahead of much of the misinformation, which I think, when people hear cannabis delivery, they think cannabis on wheels equals danger. And that is absolutely not the case. We actually, one of the provisions of this delivery bill, or one of the facets of this delivery bill, would actually be a direct, look at public safety. So there have been studies done actually that state that when cannabis is legalized recreationally, there is no increase in impaired driving accidents. So with that said, this cannabis delivery license would directly kind of attack any of the public safety concerns that people have. So essentially, you're sitting on your couch, you're stoned, it's 6 o'clock in the evening, and you want to get some more bud, you don't have to get in your car and go get it. We have simply we have a delivery outlet for you to get that delivered to you.
Right, and isn't that the responsible option?
Absolutely, it's a responsible option. So, we want people to hear that. We want people to know that while this is wholeheartedly a social equity issue, there are also provisions that would benefit medical patients. There are provisions that would benefit folks with these concerns for public safety. And like I said, There are studies that are done that show that there are no increases in impaired driving when states legalize. But it's always good to, make this argument because it's absolutely true that it does give someone that option to order online and have
Well, it's like if you're drunk, you could just have some beer driven to your house. It's like, I want more beer, but I can't get it. Like, how about someone just brings it to me? It's the same thing, isn't it?
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where we're at with that. And, we just really want people to understand that getting this delivery bill passed, I mean, we feel this way. We know everyone we've talked to feels this way, but it's the right thing to do. It really provides folks with such an attainable avenue for advancement, both in their lives and in the cannabis industry. And we feel kind of goes beyond what the state is providing right now as far as technical training and whatnot. I mean, nothing beats training in firsthand experience. So that's kind of why we feel in the first 3 years, the license is available to people who only have that one license. You get you get in the industry, you learn some ins and outs, you make those connections needed to open up a new business. And then after 3 years, you can maybe open up a retail shop or a wholesaler, something like that. I'm not saying you're going to learn how to grow commercial grade weed in 3 years, but it at least gives you that option to expand the business and then allow other folks, other social equity applicants, we have our cultivators, retailers, to then pursue that delivery license.
Do you have any other notes on the delivery? Like, I know a lot of guys we were talking about. I met a guy in Maine who was talking about you got to keep it like locked in your trunk in a lockbox or something. Have you guys worked out any of the logistics, the actual details of how a delivery system would operate?
Yeah. So basically, so there would be two types of delivery license, and I'll just go over this quickly. So we would have this is exactly what Massachusetts has. So until we release the language of our bill, which will hopefully be coming in a couple of weeks or months, whatever that might look like, you can just look at what the Massachusetts statute. So they would have what's called a cannabis courier license. And that is essentially just like an Uber Eats model. Someone places an order online, the delivery driver goes to get it from the retailer, and then they deliver it for a delivery fee and a tip, right?
Hopefully a tip.
Yeah, no, hopefully a tip. Exactly. I mean, those guys, they rely on
tip your weed delivery drivers, guys.
Tip your weed and your non-weed delivery drivers. Tip everybody.
Yeah,
man, come on. It's 2022. 20% is the new standard. And the other model to that is the operator license. So what that looks like is the person who holds this other license would be allowed to buy product at wholesale, own those products, store those products overnight, and then sell them directly to customers, as opposed to just like, say, completing an already paid for order. They kind of take the order, deliver it to the customer, and then hopefully they get a little tip.
Yeah, that would be great. And that's definitely something like we could cut out sort of the Uber middleman, where you could just have your own product and bring it to people as they call you, and not have to have an app involved.
Exactly. But we wanted to develop both licenses because it gives people, the CCB should, and does have these standards of how cannabis has to be stored overnight. And, we understood the fact that that's going to add to the cost of these businesses. So we wanted to give people the option to maybe avoid some of those costs and pursue a lower cost market entry and license for this delivery type.
Sure. And I'm going to leave. I have some notes here from Sherelle that I'm going to leave out because I'd like to ask her about those personally later. But we did talk about Sarah George a little bit, and one of you, I believe, said she was a great advocate for social equity. That's something she really cares about. Yeah.
So that is so Sarah George was Sherelle's professor in college, so she would be able to speak more on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But quickly, I wanted to talk about a little more of the details on this delivery license.
So, yeah, please do. Go ahead.
We have spent a lot of time talking to people from Massachusetts, from Colorado, who have these delivery licenses, hearing what their concerns are, and really the troubles that they run into. And Colorado, for example, has these written into the laws that you can only have one order at a time, for example. So you can pick up one order, deliver it, and they have to go back, get the next one back. Even if the person lived right next door, like two orders, customers right next door, you only have one at a time.
That was Colorado, you said?
That's with Colorado, yeah.
Yeah.
And you also have to have two drivers in the car at all times. Made no sense. So immediately, we can't have that in Vermont. It's too expensive, and it's also just not environmentally friendly at all. I mean, to have to go back and forth like that in the car.
Yeah, you probably have to drive half an hour to pick your friend up, and then
It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. So we wanted to develop. We really want to. We listened to these concerns as much as possible. We wanted our license to reflect the best possible solution to many of these concerns that we were hearing as possible. So, for example, there will be some form of security in the car, whether that's a camera, probably a GPS locator, and that is just for security for the driver,
Sure.
as well as it's good for data collection as well.
Yeah, or liability for your insurance or whatever.
So that's another big concern issue that we heard from some of these folks from Colorado and Massachusetts was the insurance that they had to pay. Was just astronomical, which is understanding considering you are delivering cannabis on wheels. But something that we would like to avoid is having these outrageously high business insurance. Obviously, they have car insurance, but like you don't need like a CDL to do this. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, and yeah. So ideally, just one person in the car at a time. They have to log when the order was picked up, when it was dropped off. And a lot of security checks, like ID checks, will happen online. So many of the delivery operators, if they don't want to develop their own app, they would partner with a third-party technology provider that ideally would have this set up. Or many of the dispensaries and retailers, as we know, online ordering has been already checked and passed.
Yeah, for their hemp products and their CBD and stuff like that. So they've already got that infrastructure sort of in place.
Right, exactly. So what we like you said, we had that digital infrastructure set up for ID checks as well as payment processing. All the boring nitty gritty details, but one that are very important. I mean, people have to get paid, and we need to make sure that doesn't fall.
No, the important shit is always boring.
Exactly, but we can't have this stuff fall in the hands of minors. We can't have people not paying for the products that so many people have worked so hard to bring to market.
Robberies? Do you worry at all about robberies?
No, and the reason why I say that is because when we talk to folks from many different states, that never came up. The cars aren't marked. So
I see. Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, I see retail dispensaries are getting robbed, but like delivery drivers, it sounds like have been okay.
Yeah, from what we've heard, that is true. Now, that's not to say it doesn't come without its potential dangers. I mean, you are going to a stranger's house, and who knows what could happen. But we really want to encourage people that this is absolutely going to be a safe and accessible way to get in the market. And like I said, so the products are going to be stored in a locked box. There's going to be GPS locators. There might be cameras. We really want to make sure that the people who are pursuing this license feel as safe and as comfortable as possible, as well as the state to feel safe and as comfortable as possible doing this.
Sure.
So,
Sure. And I'm sure they're worried about the liability angle. Like drivers might not be super worried about it, and maybe it is pretty safe, but the state is for sure concerned about what might happen if that is allowed.
And you know what? We want to meet those concerns. We want to be able to find solutions to those problems, and they are absolutely attainable. So whatever we can do, we're going to make it happen, because our goal is just to get this across the finish line by May, if not earlier, and really install some really solid and robust social equity initiatives here in Vermont's cannabis market.
Cool. Well, Nick, I'm out of questions here, but I always like to leave the last minute open for or however long you like. So I'm going to I'd like to thank you again for your time here, man, and wish you the best of luck. And I'm going to leave you with the last word.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. There's no one else that's taking their time and and their energy. I mean, this stuff doesn't come easy. You know, you got to prep these questions. You know, you got to reach out to people, set up the time, and it's a pain in the ass, and it does not go unnoticed. I want to shout out you really quick. I also want to shout out the team of Vermont Normal, Kylie, Ellen, Sherelle. Vermont Normal would not be anywhere where it is without their hard work and dedication. They're all rock stars, and I love them. I love them dearly. But yeah, you know, I encourage anybody who has any questions about anything that I brought up today to reach out to me. My email is vtnorml, that's normal without the A, @gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram. It's the same thing, vtnormal. DM us, please reach out to us if you have any questions about anything I said today or would like to learn more. I'm an open book. Give me a call, shoot me a DM, whatever it may be. But you know, I also want to give a huge shout out to so many of the hardworking individuals who are behind this market. I mean, you know, I'm super proud about what Vermont is putting forward as far as the community that has welcomed me into it, and so many of the other advocates that are fighting the good fight out there. They know who they are, and they work tooth and nail to get the job done. And so I'm really happy. And I feel really welcomed by this community, and it's really a pleasure to work with a lot of these people, such as yourself. And you know, I'm really happy about it. We're looking forward to the next legislative session. And
it's gonna be right. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Right, it's gonna be great. And you know, getting the stamp delivery thing across the line, because we feel this is one of our biggest issues, if not the biggest issue for us. So I'm very excited for this. Very excited to have done this interview, and hopefully we can do it again. This was great.
Yeah, we're gonna follow. I've been trying to do follow-ups with everyone, so for sure after the next session, I'd love to get an update and see how you guys did.
We'd love to even do it before or during the session too. You know, you provide a great platform to get the voice out. So in any way we can spread the good word, we would love to do that.
We can do it during and after.
Why not? There you go.
All right, Nick, that seems like a great place to leave it. Thank you again for your time. Nick Schuermann, VT Normal. Best of luck with everything you're working on, Nick, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Talk soon.
Peace.